Hello and welcome. I've been a big fan of Warhammer for a while. I started playing at the end of 8th edition, going into 9th edition. My first actual box of models was the Indominus box. And one thing I really love about Warhammer is the lore. The fact that there aren't really any good guys in the Imperium or in Xenos. There are like individual good characters, but almost all of them have agendas, right? And you could argue that, the Tau are better than others, and sure, to a point, but ultimately, the orcs are just having a good time, but they're still, destroying entire planets and stuff. So one of the things I love is that there are no good guys in Warhammer. Everyone is just different shades of gray, or sometimes shades of really, really bad. But despite loving Warhammer, and despite reading a good number of books in the 41st millennium, in the current 40k setting, I have never actually read the Horus Heresy. It's a lot of books. Editor Trey, throw up the flowchart, please. Let them see the flowchart. It's a lot of books. And I do a lot of driving for my job, and so I figure, why not? I'll listen to the audiobooks of the Horus Heresy while I'm driving, and I have finished the first one, Horus Rising. And if you're one of the fans of this channel that doesn't really know much about Warhammer, doesn't really care about Warhammer, and just likes to hear reviews of things, well, maybe you'll stick around for this, because I honestly think this is a really fun book, and I really, really enjoyed it. I did take notes. I like to take notes. Oftentimes, when it is something that has a lot going on, I can't listen to it while I'm driving. And so things like Stormlight Archives, right? I would listen to while I'm driving, and then I'd have to re-listen when I got home. Or Magnus, I would have to do the same thing. Malevolent wound up being the exact same way. And so here, I was able to take notes after I got where I was going, because most of it was just names. And there are a lot of names. It's a lot of names. And as somebody that, like I said, really loves the 41st millennium, I was surprised by things that people had told me or things that YouTubers had said that were not accurate, And I think it's a great reminder that you just got to make sure you read the stories for yourself. So let's get into Horus Rising, the first book of the Horus Heresy series. So right off the bat, I want to start this is just a fun sci-fi book. You don't care about Warhammer at all. This is a fun sci-fi book. It is a book about super soldiers in space as humanity goes throughout the stars, and they fight both other humans and aliens. And it is really, really fun. There's some really good character introspection here. There's some really good questions on, what is the meaning of conflict? What is the meaning of war? I was surprised by how deep this book actually got into the after effects on a soldier, because I have been told that the Horus Heresy was just a series of tragedies and that people just kept marching forward. I think the first big takeaway I had from this book is that nothing is as it seems, right? Nothing is the way I was told it was, because when it comes down to it, the Lunar Wolves, they're still people, right? They're still Space Marines, but they're still people. And I think something that gets lost in the 41st millennium is you don't get a lot of little moments with the Space Marines, right? I think like Devastation of Baal gives you some good introspective on individual characters, and things like Darkness in the Blood. You don't get a lot of individual moments between people. Now, granted, part of that is because of the pacing, right? In 40K, everybody's at war all the time, always, forever. And so there's not as much time for all those little moments. Now, there are still books where that happens. Don't misunderstand me. Things like Lucas the Trickster has Lucas being like joking around and having a good time with his brothers, and playing some pranks on them. But a lot of the books are focused on a battle, or are focused on getting forces in place to be able to, have conflict. And even little things like, I've completely forgotten his name, from Fall of Cadia, the Wolf Master there, the Wolf Lord. You don't get time for him just to sit and be. You don't get time to really know who he is. And so getting these moments in 30K in the Horus Heresy where you actually have time for Garviel Loken and Tarek Torgadon and Ezekiel Abaddon and Horus Aximan and all of them to become, and Nero Vipus, to become characters, but most importantly, Horus Lupercal to become a character. I have always been told that Horus Lupercal was the arch traitor, nobody ever told me Horus Lupercal was the coolest guy. Like, he's a great character. And it makes the tragedy even more, poignant when you get into what's going to happen. And so I want to avoid talking too many spoilers. I know I just gave a light one for Horus there. Whoops. But, I mean, it's called the Horus Heresy. You probably knew that going in. But I want to avoid, like, spoiling things for people that may be going through this journey for the first time. But I really loved this book, and I think a lot of it is because I got time to know the Lunar Wolf. Also, I know the book calls him Ezekiel Abaddon, the audiobook. I refuse to call him that because in Fall of Cadia, the narrator made it so clear that he wanted it pronounced Ezekiel by how slow he said it. So he will forever be Ezekiel Abaddon to me. But no, I really liked these characters. The Lunar Wolves were a faction I kind of didn't care about at all before this. I'm not a big fan of Black Legion in a lot of ways, but now I have a connection to them that I can't just discard, I want to know what happens to Garvey and to the other characters. They matter to me, And I was surprised by how well one book was able to convey to me who these characters are. And it's not a long book, relatively. It's relatively short. I had the page count in my head before I started talking. It is 412 pages, Not too bad. There's a setup at the end for a sequel. Obviously, I know there's a lot of sequels. There's like 52 books in this series. But ultimately, I'm excited because I don't know that much about the Horus Heresy. So from this point on, I'm going to talk characters. I'm going to talk spoilers. I've given my brief overview of the entire book. I think it's worth listening to for sure. Like I said, some really poignant moments that stood out to me in this book. And I'm going to get into those in the rest of this review. But if you want to avoid spoilers entirely and you haven't read the book yet or listened to the book, you should go read or listen to the book. It's wonderful and absolutely a recommend from me. So now getting into spoilers, let me put up the, we haven't used this in a while, let's put up the spoiler track down here. Getting into spoilers, Garviel Loken is a great main character. He's steadfast, he's true, he walks his path, and he's not afraid to say that. But he doesn't do it in a way that is like aggressive to others or putting others down. He is Garviel Loken, and he will not budge on that. And that is such a great POV character to have, knowing what I know is coming. In fact, at one point, the question is asked to him by Euphrates Keela of, hey, if this all goes bad, if this thing that happened happens again, what will you do? Will you stand with your brothers or will you stand against it? And he can't answer. It's a wonderful little moment. There's a bunch of good ones like that in here. But Garviel Loken, just a wonderful POV character. Also, I did not think you could ever convince me to like Abaddon before I read Fall of Cadia. Having finished Fall of Cadia, I like Abaddon. I don't love Abaddon, but I like Abaddon. This Abaddon's really cool. It didn't make me love him. I'm still just at the like phase with Abaddon. But good character. Good character. Solid, right? Tarek Torgadon, wonderful. Loved him, the levity he brings. I did not think I was going to like Horus Aximan, little Horus, at the start of this book. I love Horus Aximan. He's wonderful. He's great. And then, as said, Horus Lupercal, absolutely knockout character. I did not ever think I would love Horus. And I adore Horus Lupercal. Every time he's on the page, I was glued. I had to know, what little tricks he going to play next? What little jokes he going to do next? What new scheme does he have? But they're always for the furthering of the Imperium. He's got an incredible pressure, an incredible weight that's been put on his shoulders, and he's doing his best to move forward with it. And I really, really like him. It makes it even sadder. Oh, I wanted to mention also a couple other characters that stood out to me. Nero Vipus, really fun character. I had always been told the lodges were a terrible thing, and I see how easily they could turn terrible, right? I see the start of something bad there, but I really like the lodges so far. That's a fun idea. And Nero Vipus just not knowing, what to do with everything there and trying to be a good second in command. I like Nero Vipus a lot. He was cool. I even liked Cruz Half-Herd. He had a first name. I forgot to write it down. I'm so sorry. The older Lunar Wolf that had fought and was still using the signs they used with the Thunder Warriors. That's interesting. No, there's some cool stuff here. Jubal, who got possessed, and we get to see how dangerous a possessed can be among the Lunar Wolves when they don't know how to fight it. It really just goes to show that Chaos has an immediate leg up. In the Tau book, Crisis of Faith, there's a really good moment where Farsight tries to communicate with a bloodletter because he doesn't know what they are. He has no idea. He's never seen one before. And the bloodletter is just carving its way towards him. And it's a really solid reminder of knowing your enemy is more than half the battle in a lot of ways. Because if you don't know your enemy, you have no idea how to respond. I really, really liked all the stuff in the Lunar Wolves in here and their interactions with other chapters. I thought that was really fun too, especially with like the Emperor's Children. There's some really fun interactions there. I'm really worried about how that's going to turn out. I'm really worried, but we'll see. So let's get into some other characters, and then we'll get into some of my favorite story beats in here. We have the Remembrancers, Ignace Carcassy, the poet. Great, fun little character. Always tells the truth. Respect that about him, for sure, even if it hurts him. Euphrates Keela, really liked her. It was a wild beast. But also having her little shrine to the Emperor. It is fascinating to me, and always has been, that the Emperor thought people wouldn't worship him, and I think he thought that his will was indomitable enough. I mean, we'll see as we move forward. I know we actually get into the Emperor's POV at times, but I think he thought his will would be enough, but he has done far too much for people not to have taken that too far, right? Sindamin, interesting character. I like him. There's definitely some more going on there that we will see. I feel like he's going to die horribly, but, we'll see. Mercedes Olaton, she was pretty good. I think that her being able to pull things out of Loken that, he wouldn't otherwise have talked about. That's one of my favorite chapters in this book, actually, is when she starts talking to him about, what are some of the interesting things that you've seen. And he starts talking about a parade with people wearing a bunch of hats and stuff like that. That I could have listened to that chapter forever. That just Loken just talking about weird stuff he's seen in the galaxy. That chapter did more to flesh out the rest of the galaxy than what a lot of 40K books have done. No offense, I love the Black Library books, but so many of them are set on one planet and never bring up stuff on other planets, right? It's one of the things I like so much about Infinite the Divine, is that Infinite the Divine is not afraid to go, hey, yeah, here's weird stuff from all around. Just boom, here you go. So then we also have the Emperor's Children that are in here. Lord Eidolon, who is a fop in many ways, and failure. We'll see if he can turn that around. His pride has been wounded. We'll see. Saul Tarvitz is really cool. I like Saul Tarvitz. Knowing what I know is going to happen, I worry for Saul Tarvitz, but I like Saul Tarvitz. And Lucius was interesting. I did not expect... I don't like Lucius, but kind of like Abaddon, I didn't expect Lucius to be a character that I could at least understand, And I think that goes to speak to the writing of Dan Abnett here. Had to make sure I had the name right. The book's still right here. But I think it speaks to the writing of Dan Abnett that Lucius was a character that I got. I still don't know that I like that character, but I got him, right? And I think one of the greatest Lucius moments is still when Garvio Loken just punches him in the face. From there, we had a few more characters. Ralderon of the Blood Angels was introduced. He's cool. And then the best boy, just the best boy, Sanguinius, was introduced. For anybody who doesn't know, my first army was Blood Angels. I adore the Blood Angels. I adore the tragedy of the Blood Angels, of the red thirst and the black rage that drives them to feast on blood and drives them insane and turns them into the Death Company. Yeah, the Blood Angels are my boys, and I've referenced a couple Blood Angels books already. Sanguinius is just the guy, right? He is the best boy. And I didn't know going into this that there were none closer among the Primarchs than Horus and Sanguinius. I didn't know that. And their interactions are precious and wonderful. Sanguinius throwing fruit at and Horus, they are so good together. Oh boy, I know what's gonna happen. There are things that I don't know about the Horus Heresy, the little small moments, and then there are things that could not possibly have been hidden from me as someone who likes the Blood Angels. So that one's gonna hurt when we get there. Yeah, you know, there's some good Sigismund and Rogel Dorn of the Imperial Fists. Both fun characters, liked them quite a bit. I liked this book a lot. But I think for all the fun that it was, the first part of it with Loken joining the Mournival and all the things there and talking about spirits and, again, some good questions of like, you know, can mankind ever give up the shackles of spirituality? I don't think so, personally. But, as we've said a few times, I'm a Christian, so of course I don't think that way, right? But also the idea that can man ever fully separate himself from that primal part of him that fears what's in the dark, right? And I think that's a really fun question that gets asked and no good answer is given, because there is no good answer, right? None of us can speak for each other. Everyone has their own opinion on things. I also really like in the second part, Murder, and the planet there and everything there. I knew a little bit about the Interrex. I didn't know to the level of how much I would hate Erebus. There's a reason I haven't talked about Erebus yet. Oh, Erebus. So let's part 2, Murder. The Blood Angels there, and Sanguinius saying you don't need to draw the tears. I already have enough, you know. Really, really good. Really like that. Man, just the Emperor's Children just jumping down there to try and get the glory and getting wrecked. And Saul Tarvitz like holding it together with Lucius at his side. Tarek Torgadon going down to help them, and their little circle growing to include them and Lucius by proxy. That's all really good. Fighting the Mega Arachnid as they jump out. At first I was like, man, these really sound like Tyranids, but now I'm wondering if they're not the bugs from Starship Troopers. Anyway, no, Murder was a really fun section of the book, despite what it's called. But it really comes together with the Interrex at the end. And it's not, we don't spend a lot of time there, right? It was a lot of world building and lore setting up for it, but it hits really hard. I haven't even talked about the opening line. We'll get there. Because it is the cross section. It is the poem, the echo. That's the echo was the word I was looking for this whole time. It's the echo of what happens at the beginning of the book, right? Where I was there the day Horus slew the Emperor. Where Horus didn't want to have to fight on that world, and then they had to fight on that world because compliance is not as good as they think it is, right? Forcing an entire culture to do what you want them to do, that's not a good thing. And they've all been convinced that it is, and they're wrong. And so yet again, when compliance is forced, as they put it, because of Erebus with the Interrex, it's a really tragic moment. It's, you know, the joy that the captain had when he realized that they weren't tainted by chaos to turn into bitter fury when he thinks that they are. Just, it's so tragic. It is. I am someone that loves tragedy. If you've listened to any of my reviews of Magnus or of Stormlight Archive or anything like that, I adore tragedy. Such sweet, sweet tragedy that makes my soul burn with the ache of what has happened to those characters. I love it. I cannot get enough of it. I'm probably messed up in the head. Regardless, the raw emotion there was, it hurts in the best possible way. I love how that turns out. It was so close to being good, and Horus was rethinking compliance. It's so good. And then Erebus, because within the hearts of man, even within the heart of Astartes, the capability to do great things and terrible, terrible things, and it just, I loved it. It was perfect tragedy. The ensuing battle that happens and how they wind up just like both sides taking heavy losses. The Interrex, man, they had a better way, and that way is lost now. And there's something about that to me that just screams, yeah, that's what happens to the Imperium. Every time they get a better way, someone either meaning to do well or meaning to selfishly continue the status quo ruins it. And that is humanity to a T. That is perfect, It's one of the reasons that I love Warhammer so much. Because, again, nobody's good. Really, everybody's in for themselves, And we should be able to be better, but we can't. It's, philosophically, from action standpoints, it's all so good. I love it. Anyway, I'll stop talking about philosophy. This is not my fault. Cinnamon did this to me, talking about philosophy of this book. Got me introspective. No, I really loved this book. I am so excited for the next one, False Gods. Cannot wait. Already have the audiobook purchased. Just have not yet started it because I wanted to record this review first before I started the book. I don't ever want the reviews to be tainted by what comes next, even though in this case, I sort of know. Anyway, it's fine. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you not care about these Horus Heresy reviews at all? And if so, why did you listen for 20 minutes? But also, thanks so much for watching and for listening, everybody who did. I am so stoked to get through these. And maybe after the end of the Horus Heresy, I'll go back and actually review the other Warhammer books that I listen to for fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Then Horus Rising. That's gone.